What's up, people? It's Dave, it's Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. Duncan has got the horns on. He is ready for this review.
Satan as fuck.
For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the album from Polish hellraisers Behemoth. The band's new album, Opvs Contra Natvram, but with cult V's and shit, will be released on September 16th on Nuclear Blast Records.
They conned you into that because, Dave, in saying that, you put a death curse on your enemy.
Okay. Over the course of their remarkable 31-year career,
Spring chickens.
Behemoth, spearheaded by Adam Darsky, aka Nergal, are more than just the architects of their country's legendary extreme metal scene. Over the course of 3 decades and previous 11 albums, Nergal's singular vision has forged Behemoth into something far more than a mere black metal band. Beyond any confines of the genre, they have grown to become nothing less than the personification of rebellion, individuality, and unflinching self-expression, informed by a literate worldview and worldliness that has resulted in a locking of horns with everything from the mainstream press to the Polish Catholic Church, most notably manifesting in Nergal's trial for blasphemy in 2010, that only served to expose the deep-seated hypocrisies that his music seeks to challenge. It also highlighted the distinct lack of fucks that he has to give. Nice. This album means going against the current. It's the negative of the values and morals and ethics that I stand against.
I thought you said going against the cunt. And I was like, Jesus Christ, we're going all in on this album. Don't know if I can back you there, guys.
I've seriously been wrestling with destructive tendencies in pop culture, cancel culture, social media, and tools which I feel are very dangerous weapons in the hands of people who are not competent to judge others. Nergal explains our viral Armageddon afforded him the perfect opportunity to luxuriate in the one thing that Behemoth's growing empire has never afforded him: time. This is the most beautiful, thoughtful, most thought through, the most mature thing we've done. It's quintessentially Behemoth, he says. It's just bangers, all meat, no fat. Opus was produced by Behemoth, with engineering duties undertaken by acclaimed Meshuggah, Dimmu Borgir, and In-Flames producer Daniel Bergstrand. Mixing, however, involved a new player on the chessboard who you'd be hard-pressed to guess: famed producer and mixer Joe Barresi, a studio legend with a breathtaking credits list which includes Queens of the Stone Age, Nine Inch Nails, Alice in Chains, and Tool, to name a few. He was chosen for his celebrated ability to simultaneously preserve a studio recording's organic feel and identity, and the inspiration for the decision comes from a place you'd least expect. Quite interestingly though, Joe Barresi is the guy that's producing the new Slipknot album, which is also out later this month. Who Behemoth toured with.
Joe Barresi is reaping in that metal money. So that, it's like that. This is my new Polo and this is my Ferrari.
Yeah. Okay, so Behemoth. I will openly admit that.
Oh, here we go. Statements right at the front here.
Statements. Up until I saw Behemoth on the Satanist tour.
Yeah.
I must admit I didn't really get it. I was never a band that I disliked by any means, but never a band that I really kind of understood the fascination with either. When I saw them live, that's kind of when the pieces of the puzzle kind of came together.
It's kind of what I was hoping would ghost with you, and like it backfired. Like Behemoth are, like, for all intents and purposes, a theatrics band.
They are a monster live band.
You know, but what I mean is they are a theatrics band. Like their live show is just as important as the music.
Yeah,
like if they came out on stage without the face paint on, without the fucking smoke machines, without the flaming torches and the fucking choir of satanic fucking trumpets, if they came out on stage without that, they would be a black metal band. Like live, you know what I mean? But you piece all that in together and you feel like you're at a satanic mass, which is what amplifies the music. It's what makes it connect, because even the old material sounded far more interesting in that environment where I think I said to you when we saw them live, was halfway through going that this is intense as fuck. So after interviewing the man in what I can only describe as the most intense interview I've ever fucking done. It's like it all fits together in that environment. Had I not seen them, I would have loved The Satanist. I think it's a fucking great album. I would have loved it. I don't know if I would be rushing to listen to more Behemoth after it. That live performance on that tour is basically giving them good grace to do whatever the fuck they want, even if it's dodgy country. I'm looking at you, Nergal. Even if it's that, I will still check it out because the guy is the real deal. The guy lives what he's singing. Like he is like legit 100% authentic. Like, he's not like he's not Slipknot. Sorry, Slipknot. He's not like, I'll put a mask on and like we're the craziest band ever, and then 2 seconds later he's you don't even fuck off, Corey.
No, and like when you interviewed him on the Satanist tour, he was the same on camera as he was off camera. Like his character was the same
Never
the whole
changed.
time.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. I was like, this guy is so fucking cool, man. Just oozed coolness. I was just like, this is so fucking cool.
It's a guy who is very... Certain artists, like being an artist or even being a musician, invites... It's a very difficult thing. It's like being a comedian or anything that is held to public scrutiny will breed a level of fear. It breeds a level of inadequacy. And it also relies on people, like those career choices rely on people liking what you do. Like the positivity in terms of views and opinions ultimately is what you're looking for when you're a musician, an artist or whatever. To an extent, a YouTuber. Hi YouTube. It's the same idea. Like it's all predicated on you kind of reaping the rewards of positive feelings towards you. Nergal literally didn't give a fuck about that, right? And that's kind of like when that's the like few people live in that world where you can look at them and you can see they genuinely don't care what other people think about them. And that confidence is fucking infectious. And that is him. So like I said before, I get it, man. I was in that room. I wasn't like I like The Satanist. I have not really liked that much since. I think there's a couple of alright tracks. The album's really well produced, but I would never say I'm a Behemoth fan. On that fucking tour, I was a Behemoth super fan.
I think after seeing them, it made me go back and appreciate that kind of earlier work. Not the kind of early like 90s stuff, like not that stuff.
The Tin Can sounding shit.
Yeah, that was a little bit too rough for me. But from about kind of 2000 onwards, I found that a kind of handful of albums that I actually really enjoyed. Demigod was probably the first one that really kind of struck a chord with me. It's an utterly ferocious album that kind of probably leans more into the kind of death metal side of the band, which I loved. So like jumping forward to now for this new album, this album feels very straight to the point. There is no real kind of excess here. Most of the tracks don't venture above 4 minutes, except like the final track, which I'll come back to. But after that intro track, Post God Nirvana, it pretty much powers through like 40 minutes of kind of relentless, very blackened kind of death metal, I suppose, as well. And when I listened to it the first time, I was like, holy shit! Like the first listen was like, okay, right, I'm gonna have to go back to that because it was just like a kind of whirlwind.
Requires more listens.
It does, definitely does. Actually, when I listened to it the second time, the third time, I was actually picking up a lot of kind of older, kind of Behemoth kind of traits and characteristics. Rather than the stuff they've done like in the last couple of albums, there's a lot of vibes from like Evangelist, the Apostasy, even Demigod as well to an extent. You can hear it in the guitar work. This is a very kind of bleak and quite dissonant album, but I mean there's certain characteristics that don't feel too far away from an album like The Satanist either. So I think like live, this album will blend very well with the more kind of recent Behemoth work. As I said though, like on first listen, it probably didn't kind of grab me as much as like Demigod or the Satanist did, but it's an album that kind of creeps into your head over a few listens. Like I found myself becoming more intrigued to go back to it. It's like crack cocaine for your ears almost. It's like I think after you get over
You've been doing that wrong.
After you go over the initial hostile kind of delivery of the album, what kind of stood out to me was that the atmosphere of the album is such a dark album, like, and that's what kind of kept me coming back. The riffing is very kind of murky, very like venomous, and when the album kicks off in that fashion with Malaria Vulgata, it's just like it's an onslaught for that first track after the intro. But I love the parts of the album that kind of open up and show you that kind of bigger side of the band. The Deathless Sun has a bit of that. It's very kind of epic in size. They bring in that kind of choir, like the backing vocals.
Yep.
And the chants of I am nothing, I am no one, like that just was sticking in my head afterwards. It really gets in there. But same with the tracks like of My Herculean Exile. The melody on the guitar work is very distinctive, very melancholic, and it gives that track just a very kind of eerie feeling. Again, it's kind of layered up with some synths and orchestral instrumentation to give it.
Yeah, it's like brass work.
Yeah, very kind of like feeling of kind of grandeur on that track. But then at the other end, you have tracks like Disinheritance, which are way more extreme and bursting with the kind of blackened tremolo pick guitars and blast beats from Inferno, just with no kind of respite at all. One of my favourites though was Once Upon a Pale Horse. I loved the kind of tone of that track. It's really kind of gloomy lead work, but it's got a really cool kind of choppy groove that's linked up with the double bass drums. Quite a drum heavy track, which is maybe why I liked it so much. But it's got a really cool mix of tempos as well. So I felt really engaged with that track. I can see that going down really well in a kind of live setting. I think it's just the kind of overall mix of the album that I enjoyed. There's various kind of levels of darkness on this album, ranging from like super vicious blast riffs to slower, kind of dark, more kind of miserable melody. And I think like Nergal and the guys are just very good at delivering that. Like they've been a band for over 30 years. It's been the same lineup for about almost 20 years. So they're well gelled at this point, and the album sounds very well executed. So the playing is super tight. It sounds like they've taken time to make sure everything is just kind of sitting just right before kind of signing this one off. And it doesn't sound like it's been fucked around with in the studio either. The album is a very kind of natural sound. They've definitely had more polished releases in the past, or polished for Behemoth anyway, but this feels like it's got a little bit more kind of dirt rubbed into it, and I think it suits the sound, but it doesn't feel like underproduced black metal either. The last track on the album, Versus Christus, that's the longest track on the album. It's about 6.5 minutes, and I feel it probably feels like the most kind of grandiose track on the album. It's layered with piano. Again, you get that kind of big choir, kind of backing sections coming in, and it's very laden in atmosphere. Still very kind of heavy, but it kind of reminded me of almost like a kind of Septicflesh, but not as kind of full-on death metal as a Septicflesh. Really cool close to the album. I think, like, listen to this. I've given it a good 4 or 5 listens now. I think fans will enjoy this immensely. It's not quite Demigod or Satanist level for me personally, but those albums are insanely good, and they've been out for a much longer time as well, so I've listened to them much more. But this album, first listen, didn't like hit me as much as those albums, but as I mentioned, on the repeat listens, I found it really kind of grew on me. I don't think there's any bad tracks on this, to be honest, but it definitely has kind of tracks that stand out more than the rest as well. So yeah, I as we've both said, I'm not like the biggest Behemoth fan, but yeah, I did enjoy this one. I can see myself coming back to it. What about yourself? What did you think?
They really are the anomaly band, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a band like this probably shouldn't be as big as they are.
True. Yeah.
Which once again does make you wonder, maybe all that Satanist shit works. Just saying.
Maybe.
Prove me wrong. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like The Satanist is a fucking exceptional album.
Yeah,
it really is. It really is, because it does that thing that few bands and few albums will ever do, which is take something which is so against the grain, like designed, like specifically designed almost in every facet to be non-mainstream, and suddenly mainstream. Like that was the biggest album that year, regardless. Maybe not album sales, but every publication was talking about it, and everyone that listened to it was talking about it. So it was fucking huge, and they're never going to top that as a band. And that's
difficult.
And that's not like they should be aiming to do that. The thing I kind of liked about them overall is I don't think they ever try and replicate the same album, which is kind of great. So that is a point of time and reference for Nurgle in the group, and it just so happened that all the stars aligned and it all fit perfectly there. And I've tried with subsequent releases, and like I say, I have, and I won't, not even joking, I have actually tried his solo material, and it's not, none of it's connected the same way. So when I knew this was coming up, I was like, very much like yourself, I'm not a black metal fan. I like black metal elements, you know, dispersed amongst other genres of music, because I think it adds character and flavour, certainly atmosphere, to other genres of music, and when done well, it can sound fucking amazing. That I don't. It's not a genre of music I reach for, like anything. I don't reach for it. So I genuinely was curious. This works really well for me, and there's I think there's two big selling points for me. One, it's surprisingly concise. It's under 44 minutes. So I kind of love that. The songs follow a more traditional song structure length as well, in terms of length and design. It's very much like intro, verse, chorus, which I'm cool with. So that side of things. And two, actually I think there's quite a lot going on here. It is very dank sound. It's very dark, very kind of, you know, in the bills of the castle.
I was listening to it, I was thinking, like, the Satanist sounded like it should be played in a big venue with a big show. This doesn't. This feels like it should be small and intimate, and absolutely.
Yeah, this to me feels like the end of any Hammer horror movie, which ends up in, you know, the bills of some castle during a ceremony where a baby's about to be like fucking executed, and like it's that sort of like it feels very intimate, and I think that's maybe why it connects with me like so well. It's the inverse of the Satanist, which you just want to see that on the biggest stage ever. This to me, I'm like, I want to see this with a small group of people and just taking the experience. It's the mixing of the music that I love. Like, they add a lot of character to what's like a very generic genre. Sorry, taking swipes. It's a very generic genre. I mean, it's like it's the quintessential box ticking genre. But they always manage to do something a little bit different. It's mostly, to me, it was coming through in the guitar work. Like, there's songs here that kick off with a guitar sound or a riff flurry, which harkens to a much older era before black metal. Like, where we were like, this has got like a weird 70s thing going on here, and I don't know where it's going to go. The use of backing instrumentation to open the sounds up, once again, brilliant. So clever not to do it in every song. Because then the special nature of it wears off. They're not a symphonic black metal band, so like use it sparingly, and it works really well. Nurgle sounds fucking amazing on this.
It really does.
Vocally is just like ridiculous. I love his tone. I've always loved his tone. He doesn't do the I can't make out what you're singing. He's not Euronymous, right? So he's not he's not that. But there's a proper rasp. It exists, and you mentioned it before. Like, Behemoth exists in that weird kind of almost death metal, but not really sort of thing. So his vocal range is not the high fucking horrible like staticky sound, and it's not the death metal growl either. It has this really nice mid-range, which manages to bring both elements in. So you get this perfect mix. It's what makes it, I think, more palatable as well. I think if you had just all that whingy, whiny, fucking high-end hissy shit on the top, it just wouldn't be interesting. So, like, I think vocally it's brilliant. This is produced brilliantly. Like this might be my favourite production since The Satanist. I think they capture, very much like you were saying, like all the organic tones there doesn't feel like there's any fuckery, really.
No.
But you can hear it's polished.
Yeah.
But it's polished in a particular way.
Yeah.
It's polished in a way which is designed to make you think it isn't polished, when it clearly fucking is. Right? Like, the levels are on point on this album. Like, everything is completely audible. Right?
Yeah.
So someone has been doing things, right? But it's not to the point where you'd be like that, that sounds a bit manufactured. It's not like that, you know.
No.
Like, it still has all that grime. You said like rub a bit of dirt on it. That's kind of what it does. It has that kind of soily, oily sort of feeling. It's kind of fucking great. I also think the song placement is excellent. So I think you get tracks which feel like they are genuinely building to things, followed by tracks that don't like start the build off at all. They just hit you straight away and power through it. And the mix of those actually add texture and elements of like where the album feels like it's going up.
Yeah.
And then you maintain that, and then it brings you back down before propelling you back into it. Very much like yourself, Once Upon a Pale Horse is fucking great. Real anthem, like real kind of foot stomper, fist in the air sort of like classic Behemoth track, which I love as well. I think it finishes really strong. The closing track to me felt like it could be the opener to like a new set. I feel you could build up on that and it hit you with something really fucking hard after. But it has all those elements and all very well produced and put together. So like to me, it's a great album by a great band. Surprise, surprise. Is it like top tier? No, but then I self-admittedly I'm not the biggest Behemoth fan in the world. So to me, I really only started with the Satanist. I didn't go back before that, and I've listened to everything since, and this is the best thing they've done since the Satanist, in my opinion. So I would have this right behind it, and that's really all I have to say. I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting. I think like listening to that Gary album reminded me of the elements I don't necessarily like about black metal, when things become a bit samey. And I'll lose interest. And then Behemoth come across and show you actually you can use textures and, you know, stylistic switch ups and tone and atmosphere to craft something more interesting for a cohesive listen. And really in this genre, I don't think there's anyone else that doesn't like them. I think they really are on that. There is almost a Behemoth genre of black metal, and it just kind of is them. So it's a really, really, really good album.
Okay, so scores for Behemoth's new album. I really enjoyed this. As I said, I don't think it's quite the Satanist or Demigod. For me, those are my two kind of favourite albums, but thoroughly enjoyable. And I think the reward for this one is in the re-listens. After that first listen, which was just like relentless, I started to kind of pick up on more and kind of pick up on the atmosphere of the album, which I really enjoyed. And I love the way it's been produced. I think it's really well done. I'd probably go 4 out of 5 on this one. What about yourself?
I'm right there with you. This is one of those ones that I know for a fact I will go back and listen to. So, which makes me happy. I like to be in that position. There are certain bands that are much bigger. On other publications, this album's going to score really high. Probably. And that's cool, like, because I don't want to be in the machine head position where everyone else is handing it fucking nings, and I'm listening and going, "What the fuck are you listening to?" Like, someone wanted to give this a 9, I would not argue with them, and I would definitely come back to this album before the year's out. Okay, Behemoth and Opvs Contra Natvram is out on September 16th on Nuclear Blast. Links below to the Facebook to their pre-order for the album. Check it out, let us know what you think. Put some comments in below once you've heard the singles, once you've heard the album. Happy to hear your thoughts. That is our review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak decent. Bye everyone.
In my gathered Satan, or in obsidian